Stevie Nicks, $100 million. Imagine Dragons, $100 million. Lil Wayne, $100 million. Neil Young, $150 million. Bob Dylan, a whopping $400 million. These aren't their monthly OnlyFans earnings. I'm talking about the massive sums they were paid to sell their music catalogs to corporate buyers. These figures might be record-breaking, but the list doesn't stop there. Rihanna, Bruno Mars, Nelly, Taylor Swift, 50 Cent, Drake, Nicki Minaj, Calvin Harris, Shakira. These superstar artists have either sold their entire music catalogs or seen parts of them snapped up by corporate firms for jaw-dropping amounts. The concept is simple. A corporation approaches a successful musician, often later in their career, and offers 10 to 20 years worth of royalties up front in exchange for ownership of their recordings. But who's buying? Why are artists selling? And what does this mean for the music industry? Let's dive in with love and celebrity. One major reason catalog sales have exploded recently is the pandemic. With touring shut down, artists' incomes plummeted. Revenue from album sales and streaming often barely covers recording costs. Take U2, for example. In 2017, 96% of their income came from touring, with just 4% from music sales. So with no clear timeline for tours to resume in 2020, artists who rely on performing classic hits were eager to accept upfront payouts. David Crosby of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young fame is a prime example. He sold his catalog because, in his words, he couldn't work due to COVID, and streaming revenue is a fraction of what album sales once brought. In a tweet last year, he shared that he has a family and a mortgage, and selling his catalog was his only way to get by until touring could restart. This struggle hits many older artists who don't stream as much and typically bank on live shows. But COVID isn't the only driver. Taxes are a big factor too. Selling a music catalog is taxed as capital gains, which is far lower than streaming income. Streams and sales can be taxed up to 37%, while capital gains are taxed at 20%. However, President Joe Biden has proposed hiking capital gains tax to 39.6% for those earning over $1 million a year. Many of these artists qualify. Taxes might not be the main reason for selling, but if you're already considering it and a tax increase is looming, you'd probably act fast. Then there's a more sobering reason. As Ben Franklin famously said, nothing is certain except death and taxes. Many of these top-selling artists are getting older. And with age comes estate planning. You need to decide who inherits your fortune and who gets stuck with unsold merch from your 1995 revival tour. Artists like Prince, Aretha Franklin, James Brown, and Tom Petty passed away without wills, leading to long, messy legal battles. It's much easier to distribute cash than to split intellectual property among heirs. Selling a catalog while you're still sharp avoids these headaches. Artists who've sold their catalogs recently include Stevie Nicks, Imagine Dragons, Neil Young, Ryan Tedder, and Scooter Braun, all for $100 million or more. One of the biggest players in this game is Hypnosis, which spent over $1.7 billion acquiring songs and albums between March 2019 and September 2020. These firms are basically writing checks for an artist's yearly streaming and sales income multiplied by 20. With that kind of cash flowing, experts call it a win-win for buyers and sellers. But one big question remains. What happens to the music? I don't want to assume the worst, but Vivendi, the company that bought Bob Dylan's catalog, doesn't have the best track record. 5 years ago, they were sued by the creators of This Is Spinal Tap for over $400 million. They also paid $26 million in fines to the U.S. government in 2017 for misrepresenting profits, and are currently facing a billion-dollar lawsuit from French investors over a 90s deception. If you're a Bob Dylan fan, you might wonder if this is the company to trust with his legacy. This raises a huge issue. While these deals are a financial boon for artists, what happens to their music? If contracts are shady, corporations could re-release or repurpose old material in ways that clash with the artist's vision, or even go against their original intent. Take Taylor Swift's case. Her recordings were sold for $300 million, but here's the twist. She never owned them. Scooter Braun did after buying them from her former label, Big Machine. That's why Taylor's re-recording and re-releasing her older albums. Not only does she get to create more mature versions of her work, but she can finally profit from her art. Her original albums, Taylor Swift, Fearless, Speak Now, Red, 1989, and Reputation, were owned by Big Machine. Braun's company, Ithaca, acquired Big Machine and later sold the masters to Shamrock Holdings, a private equity firm tied to Disney. That's why Taylor's making new versions of her music. A mega corporation, literally Disney, owns the originals. Taylor Swift's fight for her masters is a heart-wrenching example of a growing trend in the music industry. Many artists today don't own their recordings. Some of the most iconic modern musicians have no legal control over their work or its profits. The wave of boomer artists selling their catalogs to corporate firms for massive payouts doesn't paint a rosy picture for the industry's future. At Love and Celebrity, we don't love imagining a world where Disney owns all our favorite artists' music. But at the same time, these artists are earning more from these deals than they might see from streaming and sales for the rest of their lives. Sure, their music might be commercialized by some of the most cutthroat corporations out there, but if your career were winding down and someone offered you enough money to secure your family's future, at the cost of your art popping up in a Super Bowl ad or two, could you say no? If you're loving our deep dives into the music industry and celebrity stories, please hit that subscribe button and join the Love and Celebrity community. It really helps us keep bringing you content like this. Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know which artist's catalog sales surprised you the most.